Hi, I'm Davy. I'm awesome. And welcome to Davy's Awesome Wrestling, where I review wrestling related things, all from the perspective of a fan, not an insider. So, recently, TNA came back. They never technically went anywhere, but they changed their name to GFW and then to Impact, and now they're back to being TNA. And a couple months ago, when they came back as TNA, they came back with all brand new championships. Some I like, some I don't. And it made me think, it's time to rank TNA's championships. Now the criteria. I am not ranking when they were GFW or when they were Impact. It's only TNA and not NWA TNA. Like when they first started, they were NWA TNA. Their World and Tag Team Championships were the NWA titles. The only one that I had that was distinctly theirs was the X Division Championship, but it was NWA TNA X Division, so I'm not counting it. Only from the time that they split from the NWA, became officially TNA, till they stopped being TNA, and then resuming when they came back to being TNA. So we're ranking the TNA championships. Another criteria, none of this has anything to do with the prestige of the championships or how sought after they were at any times. It's all strictly based on belt design itself and my opinion of that. So here we go. I'm going to rank TNA's championships from worst to best. So getting into the worst of TNA's championships, in my opinion, at number 17 was the Impact Grand Championship. Now some people may be going like, but that was an Impact title. It debuted when they were still TNA. Not very long before they stopped being TNA, but that's when it debuted. And it should have been a sign of where things were going. It was a gaudy, small, yet somehow bulky-looking championship. It was awful. Even the way it was defended was awful, because when it first came out, it was only defended in MMA rules wrestling matches. 3 rounds, no pin or submission within the 3 rounds, goes to a judge's score system. That's terrible. And TNA at the time was constantly trying to do that. They were trying to do MMA rules matches. Hopefully they learn their lesson and don't do that again. And number 16, the current version of the Knockouts Tag Team Championships. One, the straight nickel plating is terrible. If it had some gold plating, that might make it better, but I don't think it would make it that much better. Not to mention that nickel plating and all the design on it with the red and the yellow, it doesn't work in contrast with that pure red strap. If it was a black strap and some gold plating, it might still look good, but not really. Considering like that main plate is so large compared to its side plates, which I get they did a thing where it make it look like it connected, which, you know, okay, but honestly, the Impact KO Tag Team Championships they had before were way better than this. Ugh. Which brings me to number 15, the current TNA Tag Team Championships. They don't look that much different than the Knockouts Tag Team Championships. Slightly different shape, 5-plate belt instead of a 3-plate belt, but still just awful. Even to the point that, again, most people's complaint about it was that it was straight nickel, no gold plating. I don't know if the gold plating would help. Even with gold plating and a better color for the strap, I still feel like this would not work. It would still be awful, especially, again, with this one. That big, huge front plate that is not complemented by the smaller side plates. Like, I get the side plates are always smaller, but it clashes way too much, in my opinion. I saw these 2 tag team championships, and I was like, ugh, please have the world be better. In at number 14, the second version of the Knockouts Championship. I was not a fan of this one at all. I wasn't a huge fan of the one it replaced. Because really the only difference between this one and the one it replaced was they changed the strap from white to black, and the coloring inside the plate was red instead of blue. And for some reason, the white strap and the red coloring made it better, but not much better. Because this symbolized my problem with a lot of women's championships, is they didn't look like they were really given a whole lot of thought. More like they were telling the belt makers, like, hey, we need something for the women, have something ready by the weekend. That's what this looked like to me. That's what the original looked like to me. And this one was just like, hey, get some new colors on it because we're changing our color pattern. Which brings me to number 13, which was the original Knockouts Championship. Like I said, for some reason with the white strap, it looked a little better. Not much. And the red coloring, a little better, but not much. Basically my same problem with the last one. Except this one, slightly better. Number 12, the current version of the TNA X Division Championship. This was the first I saw in their new belts. and it had me worried. Because I was like, this is awful looking. I mean, some of it looks like it's trying to pay tribute to their original X Division Championship. Well, their original TNA X Division Championship. But, first of all, in my opinion, it's too big. Too much going on. Not to mention, there have been fan pictures of what it would look like with some dual plating. That actually would have made this look a whole lot better. Not to the point that I think I would have loved it, but I wouldn't have hated it. In this case, I hate it. It's drab. There's too much going on the main plate. I would say it was a step up from the Impact X Division Championship it replaced, but I definitely wouldn't say it was their best TNA X Division Championship. And at number 11, the very first version of the TNA Knockouts Tag Team Championships. When I first saw these, I didn't like them at first, but they did eventually grow on me a little. Not to the point that I would ever say, though, that I liked them. They grew on me to the point that I went, they're alright. Like I will say, I liked that the side plates kind of looked uniform with the Knockouts Championship. I will say this belt looked better than the Knockouts Championship that was out at the time, but I still didn't love it. I think it might have looked a little bit better with a black strap instead of a red, but either way. And then back then, they really didn't know what to do with a Knockouts Tag Team division, so it didn't last very long. And at number 10, the second version of the TNA X Division Championship. Again, they were changing their color scheme, so they wanted something that would more reflect their color scheme at the time, which was blue and black instead of red and black. So they came out with this, and it was not an improvement over the previous championship. Number 1, I didn't really care much for the oval shape because it did very much remind me of the oval Intercontinental Championship, which I was never a huge fan of. Plus, just in my opinion, whenever you have a really good championship, you kind of have to bring it if you're going to replace it, and it didn't. With it being so oval and long, it wasn't very form-fitting on anybody. Like I said, just wasn't a fan of this. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. I think I hated it a little bit just because I liked the one before it so much. Which brings us to number 9, which was the same design, but for some reason they took out the blue and put in green. Which I have no idea why, because they didn't change their color scheme to green and black. Although that might have been cool. But they were still blue and black, but for whatever reason, they decided to make the coloring inside green instead of blue. In my opinion, it improved it a little bit, but kind of like before talking about the Knockouts Championship, the different color scheme helped some, but not really. But then at number 8, we finally get into ones that I actually like. For example, the current TNA Digital Media Championship. The only thing it replaced was the Impact Digital Media Championship, which I didn't really like. Didn't hate, but didn't like. And this one, I like the updated design. I like that the main plate still has the circuit-looking stuff to make it digital media, but it's not quite as all over the place as the one before it, the Impact Digital Media Championship. I like the dual plating, how inside you can see the contrasting nickel with the gold. But again, to me, it just looks a lot better, the shape, design, and overall. Still hate the name Digital Media Championship. Felt like they had the opportunity to just change the name to Internet Championship. That would have been much better. But I will say, when they were unveiling their new titles and I saw this one, I was like, finally, one that actually looks nice. And at number 7, the current TNA Knockouts Championship. Easily my favorite Knockouts Championship they've ever had. It's a very nice design. I don't mind the white strap. I do usually prefer a black one, but you know what? Sometimes the white straps work too, depending on the title. And I actually saw this one and was like, well, finally, they got themselves a decent-looking Knockouts Championship. Like the Impact Knockouts Championships they'd had, hated blue and red version of those. Hated them. This one looks like they put some real effort into it. Looks like they really were about getting them a good designed belt versus just giving them a championship. My only issue with it was at first I saw it and I was like, it looks like it's a little big for the ladies. Because let's face it, they're just not as big as the men, but so far, I've seen 2 different women wear it around their waist, and it looks just fine. It's a good championship. Bravo, TNA. You finally stepped it up for your Knockouts division. Title-wise. Number 6, the current TNA World Championship. When I saw it again, I really did like the title. Thought it was really nice. Even though I did like the Impact World Championship they'd had previously to this, which was the only title they had that I liked, this one was definitely an improvement in my opinion. I like the design. I like that it's all gold. I like how the first two side plates look like they would connect with the main plate. I think the only thing I have against it is the way the strap itself is designed to fit around those bugs me a little bit, but not that much. I wouldn't say this is their best looking TNA championship, but again, definitely better than the one it replaced. Number 5, the second version of the TNA championship. It was a decent design overall. I didn't like it quite as much as I maybe would have if it hadn't replaced one I really loved, but it also kind of strengthened my position of sometimes less is more. It was much bigger than the one it replaced. The strap itself was way too long. Like, several competitors who had this championship didn't wear it around their waist because it wouldn't fit around their waist. And some that did, like Kurt Angle, if you looked whenever it would show him from behind wearing the belt, you could see that he had it bent and on the very last button. That was the only way it would fit around his waist. But like I said, several others, they just wore it on their shoulder because it was too long to fit around their waist. Basically, they just went too much. But the main plate overall was a nice design. I thought for both the main and the side plates, they used the nickel and gold plating very well. But again, it replaced one I liked a lot better. And at number 4, and I will say this one was tough between this one and number 3. But number 3 I liked a little bit better. And this one was the original TNA Tag Team Championship. I absolutely loved these Tag Team Championships, which is why I think it lasted so much longer. The time that they had debuted these ones, they had replaced the World Championship, they had replaced the X Division Championship, they had brought in the Legends Global TV King of the Mountain Championship, and yet they left these ones alone for a while. I loved the design and how it looked like a throwback to the Reggie Parks Intercontinental Championship, but still tweaked just a little bit to be very much its own. I loved how the side plates complemented the main plate so well, and I thought that these looked good on every team that ever held them. These were definitely better than the ones they got now. The ones they got now don't even compare to these ones. I was kind of hoping when they were announcing they were going to go to TNA that they were going to be bringing in something that was like a throwback to this one. Instead, the one they got now, I wouldn't say resembles the Impact Tag Team Championships, which were probably their worst, but neither of them have lived up to this one. Which brings me to number 3, the one that was struggling, like, should I rank this one higher than the tag teams or no? And decided, yeah, the original TNA X Division Championship. Granted, they had one before, the NWA TNA X Division Championship, which I didn't include in this list, but you know what? It wouldn't have ranked even close to this one. This one was a big improvement on that. First of all, I like how they still had the big X in the main plate, but that's not all that was going on. I liked the dual plating very much. The two side plates, I like how they contrast yet complement the main plate. The two rectangles versus a more circular shape, somehow it worked. It worked really, really well. This was a beautiful, beautiful championship, and every person who held it, it looked good on them. They haven't gotten one even close to as good as this since they let it go. In at number 2, the TNA Legends Championship. Apparently when they first designed the championship, it was supposed to be their world championship. I don't know why they went with the other one opposed to this. This one was bigger. It looked fancier. If I heard correctly, it was just that this one wasn't done in time. But when it came out, they were like, okay, well, we got to do something with it. So they had Booker T debut it as his own championship, the Legends Championship, which at first wasn't supposed to be a recognized defended title, but then people started competing for it. But there was a problem with it being the Legends Championship. It didn't make a whole lot of sense for guys like AJ Styles to have it at the time. AJ Styles is now going to be a legend, but especially back then, he wasn't at legendary status yet. So then Eric Young got it, and then he changed it to the Global Championship, which right now New Japan is doing with their mid-card title, and it just, the name doesn't make sense to me. How is one person the champion of the world and the other is the champion of the globe? Is one the champion of the actual world and the other one's the champion of the big round circle desk statues that we have in the schools? Like, that makes no sense. So then they changed it to the Television Championship, which in my opinion they should have just debuted it as a television championship. It might have lasted longer because by then we were just like, okay, well, we can't really take the title seriously. And then later they changed it to King of the Mountain Championship, which I get was kind of a tribute to Jeff Jarrett, the founder of TNA, but just a horrible name. What does that even mean? I've said it before and I'll say it again. It sounds like a game I used to play in school. where if we saw a dirt hill or something, we'd fight on it and push each other off, and whoever stayed at the top was king of the mountain. So it overall didn't work as being a mid-card title because they killed it. But the design itself was beautiful. I talk about it all the time. I prefer a black strap. Sometimes a white strap works. I don't usually like when they have red straps. But in this particular instance, it worked perfectly. I've seen fan designs of what it would look like with a black strap. It actually looks better with a red strap. For some reason, that red strap complements the plate designs so well. I honestly feel like they could have gotten more steam out of this if they would have just debuted it as the television championship and let it be their mid-card title. But instead they had to keep renaming it to the point that we were just like, yeah, that big red championship. Which brings us to number 1. My favorite of the TNA championships ever was the original TNA World Championship. Sure, it wasn't as big as the ones that would replace it, but sometimes less is more. I liked the eagle on the front of the plate. That, in my opinion, looked like a throwback to my favorite championship ever, the Winged Eagle Championship. However, again, it was very distinctly its own. It wasn't copying that title, but rather being what it looked like, in my opinion, a tribute to it. And again, where it had the rectangular square plates with the 3D globes on them, that contrast with the main plate worked perfectly. This was a beautiful looking championship. When their time ended with the NWA and they officially became TNA and they brought in this championship, I couldn't help but say bravo. Then again, I couldn't help but say bravo to all their championships except for the Knockouts Championship, because it was like, wow, they're on their way up. And they did go up, and then they went way down, and then farther down, and then a little bit back up, and then farther down, and farther down, and farther down, and now they're, going right back up as a company. But as a belt design, in my opinion, their best set of championships was when they first disbanded from NWA and became officially just Total Nonstop Action. And I'm not going to lie to you, when they first announced that they were going back to Total Nonstop Action, I was hoping the new championships would not be the same, because we got to let the past be the past, but would be kind of throwback tribute to their original titles when they were at their peak. I wouldn't say they have, because even their new World Championship, I would not say lives up to this one. It's a good-looking title, but it ain't as good-looking as this one. This one was absolutely gorgeous. So there you have it. That's my wrestling review this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, hit the little bell so you get notifications when I post videos, and leave a comment. Tell me if you agree with my rankings. Tell me if you disagree with my rankings. Tell me your favorite and your least favorite TNA Championship belt design of all. Love you guys.